Hello, virtual EN 140 students, and once again, hello face to face. I'm not going to turn and wave to you this time. This is the second time I've recorded this. All right, so I'm going to take that example proposal argument that the professor shared with you and kind of show you how I would tackle it and use as a mentor text. Using mentor text is the key to writing like this. You find an example. Most time they will provide you with an example of what they want. Is you could look at that example and make your essay kind of fall in line with that how theirs looks like. So here's the example that they gave us. Knowledge is power is the title. So of course you need to make sure you have a title. They start off this with talking about so I would just start reading from the beginning, and I've already did this once, but like major diseases such as measles, blah, 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 yet parents fear the vaccines are quickly rising. This concern is due to all this. So they start off with establishing the problem. This is a proposal argument, so you're using a solution to a problem, so it makes sense that you start off with the problem. The important thing to look out for here, though, is this. So after they've already kind of established the problem, they continue to help back it up with actual sources. So this concern is due to the increase of anti-vaccination websites and organizations which distribute misleading information. There are toxins in the vaccine or false claims. Vaccines cause autism. Then they provide studies and textual evidence to help support it. Now, note, they're providing paraphrase textual evidence. They are not providing like a direct quote. Studies and surveys published by the Maternal and Children Health Journal show that 29% of mothers are concerned about vaccinating their children, and only 19% of mothers who wish to receive information about vaccines are given educational materials. Chinwu 700 and so both of those are not direct quotes. They're using information from those sources to help support their concern that is growing, to help establish their problem. You don't always have to direct quote. In fact, most of the sources you will use throughout all of your papers are going to be paraphrases, much like we see here. In fact, we have a running text here, and we have a summative citation right here as well. So that's where we establish the problem, and that's where we give evidence to help establish that there is a problem. As concerns of vaccines continue to grow, vaccination rates are becoming alarmingly low in some communities, causing herd immunity to weaken. In some cases, causing epidemics such as the Disneyland measles out of 2015. Right there, they are giving you, so they are taking this broader idea, this broader issue that is a very wide and giving a recent specific example of how it's harmed the society. So I might start off with a general problem in all specific example of an issue that this problem has caused. If no solutions are enacted, more serious outbreaks of diseases will likely occur, leading to deaths that could have otherwise been prevented through vaccinations. Parents' fears and misconceptions of the vaccinations should be alleviated through education given by healthcare providers and schools in order to increase vaccination rates and prevent epidemics from occurring. So then they kind of talk about this little bit of a slippery type of thing where here's what the future will look like if we don't solve this problem. And then their thesis, very last line of this introduction, is here's my solution to this problem. Here's how they broke it down. Once again, they start off talking about the problem in general. Then they give some sources that help establish it, to give the problem credibility or ethos. Then they give a recent real world example that you would see in the news. They would talk about what will continue to be a problem if we don't solve this issue, and then they provide their solution. So that's how they go about that. Now let's go into the actual solution. So let's see what the first body paragraph will look like. That was their introduction. Let's look at the body. Doctors and healthcare providers play a large role in their patients' decisions about receiving vaccinations. Studies show that patients who do not have a trusting relationship with their pediatric provider are more likely to opt out of receiving vaccines. So they start off with a topic sentence, basically establishing, here's the first point that I'm going to talk about in this entire essay. And they immediately support that first point with a piece of textual evidence that helps establish that ethos, that credibility. Because of this, parental visits could perhaps be most effective time for doctors to provide proper vaccination education to parents and also develop trustful relationships before their children are born. Because these visits are already heavily recommended and attended, it'd be a great opportunity to allow parents to share possible concerns or fears about their children receiving vaccinations. Doctors may be able to alleviate patients' worries and clear up their other common misconceptions by sharing the facts and benefits of vaccines. Informing patients of the specific dangers and risk of vaccination avoidance has also shown to be an effective technique that persuades vaccine opposers, Kluger 43. So they provided a piece of text evidence there. Once again, they kind of talk about it in their own words right here. They develop the idea in their own words right here, and then they staple the textual evidence to the end to help bolster their own thoughts. They're the lead. It's their thoughts because they have researched this, and these are the researchers that they have agreed with. So they put forth their thoughts first, and then they use the text evidence to help bolster their particular point of view. Once again, note this is a paraphrase. This is not a direct quote. You don't always have to use a direct quote to use source. Source integration is paraphrases most of the time, as we see here with Kluger 43 and the next one. These risks include cervical, penile, anal, and oral throat cancers caused by HIV, Walhart 306, deafness caused by mumps, Kluger 43, and various other diseases that could also result in costly medical bills. Note how they did this. You don't always have to staple your text evidence, your in-text citation at the very end. You make sure you put it right next to the specific person that you got that information from. And once again, this is just more factual evidence that you can put there that helps back it up, and you're pointing to the source where you got this information from, so the reader can go to the Works Cited page and work their way through that. If they want to read more about this, they can find your source and go back to where it originally came from. When parents are informed of such preventable diseases, they'll more likely make the decision to vaccinate their children while feeling comfortable to do so. So basically, here's my first part of the solution, and here's the topic of it. Doctors and healthcare providers should talk about it. They provide some evidence that supports it. They continue to talk about their own development of it. They once again provide evidence that backs it up, and they wrap it all up by saying, here's how it will fix it. Now let's move on to the second point. That was the first body paragraph. Now we're going to move on to the second body paragraph. So it'll be the second point they want to take. In addition to providing parents with vaccine information during prenatal visits, so right there is what we call a transition word and phrase. So this is transitioning us from the doctors to this next idea. So this is the previous idea that they start off the topic sentence with. Now they're going to go on to the next one. In addition to providing parents with vaccine information during prenatal visits, healthcare providers should continue to educate parents about various vaccines throughout the child's life. So we go from just those first initial visits that you have to go to whenever a baby is born to lifelong vaccines, not just the first vaccines, but vaccines throughout life. Because the majority of parents are unaware of certain vaccines that are given to or recommended for their children, as well as the diseases they prevent, it is important that physicians improve communication of these facts with them. And then we provide the textual evidence that came from the author they came from, which was Vintonall. If you notice, so far, we have used 1, 2, 3, 4 different sources, and we're not even on the second page yet. So the big reason why we're able to provide so many sources so far is because you're not using a direct quote. You're just using paraphrased information that helps naturally flow into what you're saying already. One way that this can be done is for healthcare professionals to provide parents with information about their child's upcoming vaccinations prior to the child's next scheduled visit. PubMed Central suggests, so once again, here's another source. So we've now hit 5, and we're barely into we're halfway through the second page. Suggests that this can easily be done by downloading and distributing various information handouts to patients provided by the CDC website, Vintonall. Along with this, parents should receive their child's vaccination records with suggested dates for future immunizations. Doctors should also take time during the visits to discuss the matters of immunization with the parents, which will likely increase their feelings of trust. With all these things, parents are more equipped with valid information ahead of time and will likely feel more at ease about their child receiving vaccines. If you notice what is happening throughout all of this, they are still, their ideas are up front. They are presenting the information as their thoughts up front, and they're using the text evidence. They're using the sources to help bolster what they say. What they say happens first. The sources are just there to back them up. The sources are the backup singers for your own ideas. You are the lead singer of the band. You are Eminem. You're not D12, baby. That is what's going on right here. All right. We move on to the next one. Creating a requirement for parents to speak to physicians before being able to opt out of a vaccine is another way in which healthcare professionals can potentially lessen patients' fears and broaden their understandings. So now we've moved into the third point they've made. The first point is they need to do it in those initial visits. Second one is any other additional visits, other additional checkups, they need to continue to talk about vaccinations. And then the third point that they come up with here is, of course, the opt-out. And if you continue, and it's going to follow the same pattern where your information is first, and then they provide textual evidence to back it up. As we can see here, and then they have one final way that they add here. As a result of the recent lower vaccination rates and disease outbreaks, including increases, a number of pro-vaccination groups are beginning to push for mandatory vaccinations. So this is the last one in which they talk. So this is the last one where they talk about their main point, which is their main solution, which involves physicians being the spear of the point. They end it here, as you can kind of see, and this is just me skimming it at this point, because I kind of have an idea of where it's going. Right here, they're going to talk about introducing it at the high school level, like talking about vaccinations at a high school level, which I guess which removes the physician from the solution. So this is another solution that it could be offered. So if you have more than one solution, your main solution needs to take up the majority of the paper, and the supplemental solution is something you might talk about here at the very end. So other things you might look at. So talking about vaccines during high school education. And then we talk about right here, it's talking about a push for mandatory vaccination laws. And I believe here it's going to talk about how that might not be the best way to go about it. So basically here are two other options that you could go with. And they point out these are good options, but here's the issue behind them. They kind of start off, here's what this idea is, and but then they end it with, but here's why it wouldn't work. Here's what this idea is, but here's why it doesn't work. And in the second one, they actually quote a doctor how implementing this idea would be a bad idea and would do more harm than good. Now let's come to the very final paragraph, the conclusion, where you wrap everything up. Parents' growing fears of vaccinations due to the spread of misinformation is causing the vaccination rates in many communities to decrease and weaken herd immunity. Because of this, people who are medically unable to receive vaccinations have been left more susceptible to contracting diseases, and serious but preventable outbreaks of diseases such as measles and mumps have occurred, which in some cases have resulted in death. These epidemics, so we finish it here with recapping. Here's what the problem is. And then we go here. These epidemics can be easily prevented through vaccination. So here's the solution. If education is expanded to teach the truths of vaccines to the public through healthcare providers and high school teachers, the trending concerns and fears about the vaccinations can hopefully be relieved, and the disease preventable epidemics can end instead of worsen. So the conclusion is, here's in a nutshell what the problem is again. Here's in a nutshell what the solution is again. So your conclusion is basically the first part of the essay shrunk down to about one paragraph. And then you have the works cited page, as you can see. So once again, here's how after reading this particular example essay, here's how I'd go about doing it. Here's the problem. Here's my solution. Spend the good majority of the essay establishing the solution as the best solution. Dedicate one paragraph to a possible other solution that people have recommended and explain why that particular solution would not work. And then conclude it with summarizing here's the problem and solution one last time. So that is how I would possibly use this mentor text, how I would strip this mentor text down to its bare essentials and make sure my essay have those particular elements. Another thing to note, like as you were going through there, you see that each body paragraph had at least one or two sources that they were citing, and they were not direct quotes. Most of them were paraphrases. So you need to make sure that in your body paragraphs you have some sources that you're connecting, that you're stapling to the bigger points that you are making. All right, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, please email me, pdavidson@portugal.k12.mo.us. Make sure you have your essay submitted by 5 o'clock on Sunday to qualify for peer review. And if you don't do that, make sure that you still do what I have told you on your final draft before you submit it. All right, I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.